Pet Clinic on Today, sponsored by petfix-club.com. Love your pet? Join the club.
Now our resident pet expert, Pete the vet, joins us to talk about the ins and outs of breeding or not breeding pets. So the question is, to neuter or to breed? Pete, great to have you on the show.
Good to see you.
We have Kiko. Who else have we here today?
This is my other dog, Finzi.
Oh.
And they're both spayed female dogs.
Okay.
Kiko's 11 now and Finzi's 8 years old.
So what are the implications of breeding on our pets, Pete?
Well, the traditional reason to spay and neuter pets was to deal with the problem of unwanted dogs. So like 25 years ago, in Ireland, we euthanized something like 30,000 dogs every year.
Wow.
Just because they were surplus to requirements. Now that's come right down now. There's less than 500 dogs euthanized now every year, and there's actually a bit of a shortage of dogs in some way. But that's only because we've been so good at getting the message out.
Yeah.
And if we relax, then it'll just go up again, especially after the pandemic lockdown's over. Dogs won't be as popular, and the numbers of unwanted puppies will go up again.
Okay, and we don't want that.
We don't want that. So it's important for population control.
Yeah, because I remember, I suppose, once you mentioned that, Pete, years ago, I remember maybe twice a year you'd have neighbours coming around, does anyone want a dog? Does anyone want a little puppy?
Yeah.
And you don't really hear that much anymore because of this.
That's right. That's right. Okay. But it will happen again if we're not careful. So that population control is the overriding reason why you should spay. Everybody should get their pets looked after.
Okay. So obviously, by nature, Kiko's looking for something. That's okay. By nature, say, it can happen naturally, or planned or unplanned, I suppose, Pete.
Unplanned is the big issue, yeah. It's one thing, I mean, if you plan to breed from your dog, that's okay, but be aware it's a really big deal. There's an awful lot of work involved. There's some risks to the mother dog as well. And really, puppies will take over your home for 2 to 3 months, and you really will feel the impact of it. So it's not something to go into lightly as well. Yeah. And you do have to find homes for the puppies, and that's not always easy.
And that's probably a big part of it, Pete, that you can kind of gloss over sometimes. Say, if you were planning this at home, you do have a responsibility, don't you? You're
absolutely responsible. Those puppies, and a dog like Finzi, she could have 6 or 10 puppies, and you've got to find homes for all of those. And not in the normal course of events, that's very difficult to do. Okay. As well as that, if a bitch isn't spayed, then she will come into season twice a year. Twice a year? Twice a year. She'll be dropping blood around your home. Okay. And all the male dogs in the area will be attracted to your house. She'll try and escape, and it's a lot of bother. And it lasts for 2 to 3 weeks, and it happens twice a year. So that's the other big issue. But as well as that, I mean, I think perhaps the reasons people don't realise why it's so important is that it's good for their health for them to be spayed. And we know this from other countries. In Norway, for example, they consider it unethical, and it's actually illegal to spay bitches because they see it as being a mutilation of the dog. That's their sort of cultural call. Now, we don't agree with that. We don't agree. We think it's for their health, for the good of their health. As an example, in Norway, something like 50% of all female dogs over the age of 10 get mammary cancer or breast cancer. 50%. In this country, we almost... 50%. In this country, we almost never see that disease, because if you spay a bitch when she's young, you reduce the incidence of that cancer by over 99%. So it has a huge effect on reducing that risk. As well as that, in Norway, there's a problem with the infected womb, which is called pyometra, and they see that in 1 in 4 dogs over the age of 10. So these are the diseases that we prevent by routinely spaying our female dogs in this country.
And when you're talking about spaying, Pete, at what age should you do it?
Well, we always used to say sort of 5 to 7 months of age. That was what we said universally. And I'd still say that for small dogs like Kiko. For bigger dogs like Finzi, there is an argument to leave it till they're older, till they're skeletally mature, like maybe 18 months of age, because there are some very rare cancers and other conditions which are more common in female dogs if they're spayed when they're young. So for those big dogs, it makes sense to wait till they're older. But I'd always say talk to your vet, because different vets have a slightly different take on this, and I would follow their professional advice on that.
Okay, we've dealt with the female side. What about the male side then, Pete?
The male side... Again, there are some cancers that are prevented by neutering. Testicular cancer is the most common cancer in male dogs, and that's prevented, obviously, completely by removing the testicles, by neutering. As well as that, disease of the prostate gland, particularly something called benign hyperplasia. The prostate glands in older male dogs, in nearly all cases, something like 70% of male dogs, the prostate gland gets bigger and then causes problems with urination and different things. So that also doesn't happen once they're neutered. As well as that, male dogs, behavioural issues, some behavioural issues are well treated by neutering. For example, if a dog is straying a lot, if he's humping different objects, if he's piddling around the house, marking his territory, all these behaviours come down when they're castrated. And again, with male dogs, you do it the same sort of thing with timing. Little dogs, you do it at around 5 to 7 months of age. Bigger dogs rather, you leave them till they're older. I would say one thing, castration, neutering, it doesn't solve all behaviour problems. Sometimes people have a rather bouncy young adult male dog and they say, I'll get him neutered and I'll make it all better. It doesn't necessarily. And neutering doesn't suit all male dogs. For example, if a dog is an anxious, nervous kind of dog, he needs his testosterone to give him confidence. I mean, the reason why you and here are standing here talking so confidently, Daithi, is because we've got testosterone in our blood and it's good for us. And it's good for male dogs too to have testosterone in their blood. And so that's really, you should again talk to your vet before just going ahead and getting your male dog neutered.
Just from listening to you there, Pete, as a whole, it seems to be a good idea.
Generally, it's a good idea. There are some very small downsides. Urinary incontinence, a little bit of leakage of urine can happen in some female dogs when they're neutered, and that can be treated, by the way, but it can happen. And also, neutered animals, male and female, are more likely to gain a bit of weight. Quite a lot more likely, like 50% more likely to put on weight. So
but is that because they're eating too much after?
It's because their appetite goes up compared to their needs. So all you need to do, though, is be aware of that and use a good quality, standard dry kibble for them and feed them a bit less than they might want. So they're a little bit hungry, but they keep their nice little waistlines. And my two dogs, as I say, they're good weights. And
they're the proper weight, I suppose.
Well, Finzy's perfect. Kiko's a little bit prone to getting a little bit podgy.
That's because Kiko gets to come on TV every week and gets fed treats to stay very, very quiet. Pete, just before you go, and I know because we all love our pets and we don't want to see them in pain. With any of these procedures, are the dogs are they in pain at all?
Well, it's a surgical operation, so obviously there's like around an operation they do need to have pain relieving medication. But vets are well aware of this now. So when you get your pet spayed or neutered, your vet will give them injections of pain relief and will often give you pain relief to take home with you for your pet to make sure that they stay comfortable.
So don't be worrying about that.
Don't worry about that, no.
You're back next week, Pete.
Back next week, indeed. Until then, if anybody wants to get hold of me, they can send me questions via petfix-club as usual. I'll be happy to answer them.
Perfect. And next week we'll be chatting about obesity, Pete. Looking forward to that.
Thank you very much.
Lovely stuff. Sinead, Pete will be back next week. We'll see you then, Pete. Bye.
The Pet Clinic on Today, sponsored by petfix-club.com. Love your pet? Join the club.